Hello and welcome to the course of History Wall Chart, which covers ancient, medieval and modern history, presented to you by Plus Prameshi Library. So, as I've already mentioned, this chart can be actually bought from Amazon, Flipkart and also on Prameshi Library's website. And this chart looks something like what we have already seen. So, this is the overview of the chart, as you can see here, starting from ancient, going till medieval and then till modern. So basically it's a one-stop solution for your entire history, and I have been repeating it and I'm telling you, this chart you might modify it according to what you need. So you can stick sticky notes over this wall chart wherever you want and put some extra pieces of information also. Okay, this is something about me. My name is Supriya Singhal. You can connect with me on Instagram by the name of Crispy Stories. Okay. So now in the last class we studied till the Carnatic Wars, and I told you there were Carnatic Wars happening and then there was significant Maratha expansion that was happening at the same time. But I also told you that during this time there is Anglo-French rivalry present in India. Okay, and now since you already know that after third Carnatic War, French have been defeated. So who is the main strong power in India now? British. And now we will start learning about the British events, British Governor Generals, the British timeline in India. Okay, and so that is why I'm telling you that third Carnatic War. Okay, this is, you can say, a landmark event in the history of India, because this defined that which European power is finally going to stay in India, which European power is finally going to have a control over India, which European power was going to colonize India. And who was it? It was Britishers. Okay. So in from 1757 to 1760, you will find that Robert Clive, who is an active participant, okay, who is leading the British forces in the Carnatic Wars, he becomes the governor from Britishers' side in India. And then you need to remember two wars. So there were Carnatic Wars in the Carnatic region, in the southern Indian region. There were two major wars that happened in the Bengal region. One was Battle of Plassey, another was Battle of Buxar, okay, or Buxar or Buxar. So please remember it, Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. So when is Battle of Plassey happening? It is happening in 1757. Okay, and when is Battle of Buxar happening? It's happening in 1760. I'm so sorry, it is happening in 1763. Okay, so please remember these two battles, and in between of this also you will find one more battle happening, but that is at an all India level. So how many battles happening in Carnatic region? Three Carnatic Wars. How many battles happening in Bengal region? Two. Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. When is Battle of Plassey happening? 1757. Who is the governor from the Britishers side then? Robert Clive. Okay. This is also the time when Marathas are occupying the Punjab temporarily. Okay, and now who is the Mughal emperor during this time? So after Alamgir II comes the Shah Alam II. And who is the Shah Alam I? Write in the comment box, because I've already told you who was Shah Alam I. Okay, so now Shah Alam II has taken over the throne, and see, in Shah Alam's two time only, he is there for a long period of time, around 60 years, starting from 1759 to somewhere around 1805. Okay. During his reign only you will find Battle of Buxar, the third Battle of Panipat, the two most defining battles of his history happening during his reign. Okay, so Shah Alam II, two battles happening. One is the Battle of Buxar, which is happening in Bengal. Another is third Battle of Panipat, which is happening in 1761. It's the same Battle of Panipat whose movie was released recently, Panipat, remember, in which there is I think Kirti Sanon and Sanjay Dutt and Arjun Kapoor. So wherein basically there was a controversy regarding the Jat Maharaja Surajmal. So it's the same movie. Okay. So 1761. Okay. So 1761 is third Battle of Panipat. And third Battle of Panipat, see, Battle of Plassey is fought between whom? It is fought between Anglo on one side and Bengal ruler on other side. Okay. So for it was, so 1757 and 1763 both are happening between English and Bengal Nawabs or Bengal rulers, while 1761 battle is happening between whom? It's happening between the Mughal emperor, like the Mughal empire, on whose side are Marathas also, and versus whom? versus Ahmad Shah Abdali. Okay, so that is why you will find in this war Mughal and Marathas are defeated. Third battle of Panipat, sorry, here you will find in 1761 the third battle of Panipat is happening, and here you will find that Marathas are representing from the Mughal side, and in this battle you will find that finally Marathas have been defeated. Okay, and that means ultimately Mughals have been defeated. Okay, and after this battle you will find that Marathas lost so many of their army men, so many of their commanders, that they never could regain the power that they had earlier, and Mughal empire is already on decline. So it has already been 1806, and in 1857 you will find the last Mughal ruler Bahadur Shah Zafar coming. So Marathas are also declining, Mughals are declining, but who is increasing in power? It's English. Okay, so this is how the entire scene is happening. So you will find that Indian rulers are declining while the European powers are increasing, and in European powers also there is Portuguese, Dutch, French, and but there is English at this level. Okay, so see, this history is little complicated, but you need to take them as individual units. Okay, so you need to study Europeans little separately, you need to study basically medieval history separately, then medieval to modern connecting region differently, Maratha separately, independent kingdom separately, and Mughal empire separately, because if you start studying them together, it will basically crumble. So don't make a pie out of it. Okay, make like a sweet salad where everything has its own proportion. Now, so here you can see Shah Alam has acceded the throne, okay, of the Mughal empire, and then who is the Nawab of Bengal, who is going to fight the battle of Buxar, which is happening in 1763. It is Mir Qasim. See, what is happening is, in Bengal region, English are trying to gain more control. Why? Because Bengal is first of all has a lot of rivers, so it has fertile soil, so good agriculture productivity. Second, it is connected to seaport. Okay, it is connected to sea, it has a shoreline, so it's easier for trade to happen, because obviously seaport is trade is cheap also, and you know that time English was very good in the like maintaining the sea routes and sea contacts. So now they want a place which has basically coastal connectivity. So Bengal is also that place. Apart from that, Bengal has lot of connectivity to other regions like hinterland regions, Assam, Orissa, Bihar. So where other commodities, for example jute, for example silk, etc. can be produced. So Bengal is a very rich economical unit. So English wants to like acquire it. And now what is happening? There is one indigenous ruler who is fighting with Britishers in the Battle of Plassey. He loses the war. English actually puts their puppet Mir Zafar on the throne, but Mir Zafar is replaced by Mir Qasim, and Mir Qasim does not like that he has to take every decision only after asking English, and that is why he also wages a war against English. But unfortunately, he loses the war. English won the war, and that's when the whole basically Governor General or the generalship of the Britishers started in India. Okay. So I've given you brief overview about the things that are happening, and we'll study like more details about them as and when they come during the wall chart. So there's third battle of Panipat, as I told you, 1761, and here after that you will find we have one important state coming in picture, which is Mysore. Okay, so there are three Carnatic wars happening first. Okay, and they end in 1763. In this brief period of time between second and third Carnatic war only, you will find Battle of Buxar, Battle of Plassey, and third Battle of Panipat also happening. Okay, after this 1763, from like little last of it 1762 till ahead, you will find now Mysore has come into picture. And why are these Mysore, Bengal, Sikhs, etc. coming into picture? Because these are independent kingdoms which have carved themselves out of the bigger Mughal empire. Okay, so now in Mysore, two rulers you need to remember. One is Hyder Ali and other is Tipu Sultan. Okay, so with this, see, generally during this time we say that medieval history is completed. So, and now we will be starting with the modern Indian history, which is basically from 1771 to 1947, which is the time when India got independent. But since modern Indian history is so vast, so we have divided it in different parts. Okay, so there will be part 1, there will be part 2, there will be part 3, etc. So now let's start after this particular point what is happening. So now we have seen 2-3 things happening. One is the Maratha Empire, other is the Mughal Empire, then there are Europeans, and then there are smaller or independent kingdoms. So we need to study about them parallelly. Okay, in 1761, when the third battle of Panipat is happening, who is the Peshwa of Marathas? It's Madhav Rao. Okay, Battle of Buxar, I told you 1763, it's actually 1764. So Battle of Buxar is happening, and I told you Battle of Buxar is fought between whom? So see, actually what happens is Battle of Buxar was supposed to be fought between English versus Bengal Nawab. Okay, but Nawab of Bengal realizes that English are not only a threat to Bengal but also to entire India. So he decides to ask from help from the neighboring state of Awadh and also from the Mughal emperor, okay, who is Shah Alam II, so that their combined forces can defeat English. So Bengal ruled by Shuja ud Dawla, Awadh, which is Bengal under Mir Qasim, Awadh under Shuja ud Dawla, and Mughal Empire under Shah Alam. I am repeating it again. Awadh is under Shuja ud Dawla. Okay, Bengal is under Mir Qasim. Okay, and Mughal Empire is under Shah Alam II. Okay, so these three together, they basically fight with Britishers under this Battle of Buxar, but they face a defeat, and in the end you will find that Mughal Empire, like the Mughal Emperor is sent to Allahabad, the seat of Delhi does not remain, he is put on a pension system. Okay, and also you will find that basically Bengal has come under English now. Okay, so the Battle of Buxar is also called as the you can say the decline of the independence of Bengal and rise of English in India. Okay, then you will find after this time, because it was Clive's governorship that was happening, and there were so many victories for Britishers. So Britishers extended the Clive's governorship for the second time, and now he is there from 65 to 67 also. Now after this Battle of Buxar only, see what will English want? English want basically their control, but they also don't want to manage public affairs because they know that that's a tedious task. So what they came up with was a system of Diwani and Nizamat. So after Battle of Buxar, Diwani, which is the rights of collections of revenue from this Bengal region, they were given to Britishers. Okay, but they refused to perform the Nizamat function. Nizamat is police and law and order function, and that was with the ruler only. So Nawab Bengal ruler is there, Nawab of Bengal is there, but his rights have been taken away. So now he is only performing, basically you can say, the functions which require money but which do not generate money. Are you getting it? That's the difference. The Britishers are controlling income of money, but they have given the functions which require money expenditure to the Bengal. So now what will happen? There will be Diwani without Nizamat. With whom? With English East India Company or Britishers. Okay. So grant of Diwani of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha region to East India Company. By whom? Obviously the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, because I told you Bengal was never independent. It always said that we accept Mughal sovereignty, but we want little bit of separation of powers. Okay, and that is when Bengal cannot decide to give itself. Okay, it's the Shah Alam II who is the Mughal Emperor then, that he gives the Diwani powers of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha to English East India Company. And what was the treaty's name that was signed? It was Treaty of Allahabad. So Battle of Buxar ended with Treaty of Allahabad. Just like there was Treaty of Paris for Third Carnatic War, there was Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle for which Carnatic War? Write in the comment box below. Okay. Then you will find that between 1765 to 1772 started this dual government. Why dual government? Because one function, Diwani function, is being performed by one, Nizamat function is being taken care by the another. So there is East India Company also, there is Bengal ka Nawab also, but you will find that there is a dual government now happening in Bengal, and this dual government will be abolished after the Regulating Act of 1773 is passed. Okay. So now after this you will find that in 1766, okay, Nizam, which is the Hyderabad region, they have ceded the territory of Northern Sarkar to English. Okay, in 1767 you will find that Clive is departed. Okay, and company's governorship is established in Bengal. Okay, and this is also the time when you will find the start of Anglo-Mysore wars. So just like we had 3 Carnatic wars, we have 4 Anglo-Mysore wars. Okay, how many Mysore wars? 4 Anglo-Mysore wars. Okay, 1767. Then there will be around 1770. You can say 2 or 3. 1770s. I'll write it. Okay. Then there will be another in around 1790s, and then there will be around 1800s. Okay, these are like the rough dates. So 1767 is this first Anglo-Mysore war fought between Hyder Ali. Okay, so first is Hyder Ali, then comes Tipu Sultan, because lot of students have always doubt who comes when. Hyder is first, Tipu is next. Okay, so Hyder Ali fights with English. Okay, and you will find that now after this war, okay, a treaty is signed, after which it is decided that there will be peace and there will be no more accession. And also Hyder has basically gone into an alliance with his neighboring states. So who are the neighboring states of Mysore? There is Marathas and there is Nizams of Hyderabad and Marathas of Maharashtra. So now Mysore under Hyder Ali, after this war, the first Anglo-Mysore war, has basically signed a treaty with these two kingdoms that these three will not wage wars on each other, and if there is a third war or third attack by another entity, these three will protect and basically help each other. Okay, and when this alliance gets broken or this promise gets broken, then you will find is the second Anglo-Mysore war happening. That is why I had to give you little pretext of why what happens after this war gets over. Now it's the same time when you will find that 1770, when there is a great Bengal famine happening. Okay, famine happens for two reasons: either there is a shortage of food, or second reason is there is surplus of food but it has not been distributed to people. So generally it is said that administration of India under Britishers, see, India after independence has not faced a single famine, which tells you the importance of democracy. Why? Because not only was food available, but it was made accessible and affordable, okay, for the people, so that even if there is surplus food, it actually reaches people. Okay, so famines are happening a lot, like a lot of famines are happening in the British Indian time. Why? Because there is a shortage of food because of recurrent floods and droughts that are happening in different regions, and secondly is the bad food management policy of the British Empire, where they are not actively distributing food from the surplus to deficit regions, and that is why you will find that famines are recurring. Okay, then you will find that in 1770 to 1772, Cartier is made as the governor of Bengal after Robert Clive is there. And then in 1771, I told you, right, this is the time when there will be the second war also coming soon. So Marathas, they attack Hyder Ali and they occupy Delhi and restore Shah Alam, who was then basically, till I told you, right, he was basically sent to Allahabad after the Battle of Buxar, Shah Alam, and that is when you will find that Marathas have actually attacked. They have occupied Delhi and they are also restoring back the Shah Alam's power, and they have given basically restored him back to the Delhi region, moving him from Allahabad. Okay, and 1772 will start with the formal, you can say, a relationship between British East India Company and India. Why? Because from now on will start the system of Governor Generalship. So first there will be Governor General coming from 1772 to 1833. Then from 1833 to 1857 you will have Governor General of Bengal. Then from here 1833 to 1857 you will have Governor General of India. From 1857 till 1947 you will have Viceroy of India. Okay, Governor General of Bengal or Governor General of Fort William, then comes the Governor General of India, and then comes the Viceroy of India. Okay, so these three things are generally the post given to the highest authority under the British Empire, to Britishers, to actually control the Indian territory. Okay, now 1772 is also the time when Madhav Rao, who is the Peshwa, he also dies, and then there is return of Shah Alam to Delhi, as I told you, because Marathas have actually restored him back to Delhi region. Then after basically after you will find that Madhav Rao, who is the one, now there is Raja. So this is Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who basically will come up with Brahmo Samaj. Okay, who is the one who will start Atmiya Sabha. So he is different. Okay, he is the one who is basically doing socio-cultural reform movement. Okay, so Raja Ram Mohan, see, India is I know it's a little confusing, but please stay with me. So there is like independence movement going on. There is Britishers already. Then there are princely states, and simultaneously there are certain scholars who have realized that India is a lot backward because they have gained now access to the Western education. They can read their own scripts. Okay, they are translating things into the common languages for common people to understand, and they are questioning. They are scientifically questioning the old values and customs and how are they actually good in today's society. And that's when you will find lot of socio-religious cultural movements also happening. So there are basically reform movements, and there are revivalist movement. What are the two types of socio-cultural religious reform movements, religious movements happening? Reform movement and revivalist movements. What are reform movements? Reform movements are the ones which actually want to reform whatever is happening in a particular religion. They don't want to see, they are the ones who feel that there are certain modern or western ideas which are really good. For example, equality, freedom, liberty, okay, nullification of superstitions. So these are reform movements. What are revivalist movements? Revivalist movements are the ones which believe that we once had, or a religion or a society once had, a glorious past, and they feel that the society has degraded from then till now and we need to restore that glorious past. So that is why they are reviving the old culture, and hence they are called as the revivalist movements. Okay, so reformist movements and revivalist movements, they are not limited to Hindus. There will be Hindu movements also, there will be Muslims also, there will be Parsi movements also, there will be Christian movements also. So there will be all sort of reform and revivalist movements happening in different religious groups also. Okay, Brahmo Samaj is one such movement which was started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and he first started Atmiya Sabha, and then basically after Atmiya Sabha came the Brahmo Samaj. Okay, Raja Ram Mohan Roy is one of the prominent figures, okay, behind starting this socio-religious movement, because he was the man who was behind the abolition of sati. So he was the one which, because of whom you can say the Prohibition of Sati Act was passed. It was made a criminal it was made an offence where people were punished if they were found to be basically practicing sati. Okay, and now since we have moved to sati, there's a difference between sati and jauhar. Sati means basically after husband dies, women is forced to basically sit on that husband's fire pyre, and like she is supposed to be sitting there and burn herself. But jauhar is an act of valor and courage where women herself voluntarily decides to basically give up her life, so that she is not touched, her sanctity or her dignity is not basically curtailed by any other man. Okay, there's a difference of concept. Please do not confuse between sati and jauhar. Okay, jauhar is a very courageous act. Sati is considered to be a forceful exercise. Okay, now sati is one that is being abolished by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay, because of his acts, first you will find there is an act passed in 1829. Okay, now this Brahmo Samaj, you will find that there are many figures associated with Brahmo Samaj. There is grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore also associated with Brahmo Samaj. Then you will find his father also is associated, Rabindranath Tagore's father. Then you will find that Keshav Chandra Sen, okay, he is also associated with Brahmo Samaj. And slowly you will find that Brahmo Samaj, see, Brahmo Samaj was formed for what? It was formed for basically promoting monogamy. Okay, it was formed to get social reforms and religious reforms. Okay, specifically that it did not believe in the women curtailing practices, like for example parda, sati. It wanted to educate women. They did not want child marriages happening. They wanted widow remarriages happening. Okay, they wanted basically people to read text and then to interpret themselves rather than to having them interpret from the priest. Okay, they did not believe in the caste system that existed. Okay, so a lot of these superstitions that existed, so they wanted to basically organize society on the lines that it is more equal, more liberal, more freedom and is given, and some concepts of the western world also. Okay, so I think I have explained you enough about Brahmo Samaj. More if you want to read, will be soon coming out with the courses on modern history. Now after this we will move towards 1773, wherein you will find that there is who is now basically leading the Marathas. It's Raghunath Rao, and then there is a civil war which broke out within Marathas, because I told you Maratha was a confederacy of so many different you can say so many different rulers of their own regions. So therefore there is a frequent civil war that is happening between them only. Then in 1773 starts the formal act system getting started. So after this you will realize there basically British East India Company, actually till now what is happening is English East India Company has come to India. They are only waging wars, they are only doing all this drama, okay, and they are only controlling the resources. But English East India Company, there is a peculiar event that is happening. While East India Company's treasury is going down, the people, the employees of English East India Company are becoming rich. Company is becoming poor, but people are becoming rich. Something like, for example, Kingfisher Airlines is getting bankrupt, but Vijay Mallya is becoming rich. I'm just giving it as a parallel, no connection with the real world. Okay, so now what will you think? That there is some mismatch or some corruption happening? That is why British Parliament decided that they need to regulate or control English East India Company's affairs, because this company has been given monopoly of trade with India. So if they are doing corruption, if they are not following the rules and regulations, then their monopoly should be ended. Okay, so that is when they decided to pass acts. And why were these acts passed? These acts were passed to control the English East India Company's affairs in India. Okay, and who was passing these acts? These were passed by the British Parliament. So now comes the, you can say, a silsila of lot of acts. So first there will be regulating acts, 1773, then there will be amending act of 1784, Pitt's India Act also, then there will be 1793 also, and then there will be 1813. Okay, then there will be charter acts of 1813, 1833 and 1853. After charter acts, you will find that there is a Government of India Act of 1858. After that, okay, you will have basically Indian Council Act of 1861, 18 I think 92, or and then you will have 1909. And after that you will have Government of India Act again from 1919 to 1935, and finally you have India's Independence Act of 1945. I know these are a lot of acts, but you need to remember them. Okay, you have Regulating Act, you have Council Act, you have Government of India Acts, you have basically Independence Act, okay, and Charter Act also. So 5 kinds of different act being passed, okay, to regulate East India Company's affairs in India. Okay, so now we are at 1773. So this is the time of the first act being passed, which is the Regulation Act of 1773. Okay, and via this act basically Parliament started initiating their control on the company. Okay, and this is the time when basically Lord Warren Hastings will become the Governor General of Fort William, which is basically the English fort present in Bengal, and hence Warren Hastings was also called as the Governor General of Bengal. Okay, so who is the first Governor General of Bengal? It's Warren Hastings. Who is the first Governor General of Fort Williams? It's Warren Hastings. Okay, then you will find in 1774 there is a Rohilla War that is happening. So see, you can study history either this timeline wise, or you can go Governor General wise, whichever way you find it easier. Through Governor General point of view, like who came when, what happened next, we are already covering in Tamil Nadu class 11th and 12th book discussion. So please watch that course so that you actually do not leave any stone unturned to clear your prelims and mains. Okay, so now you have Warren Hastings, who is going to be there from 1772 to almost 1784-85. Under his tenure, you will find there is Regulating Act of 1773. Okay, there is Pitt's India Act also of 1784. And you will also find that during his tenure only, there are 3 wars happening. There is second Anglo-Mysore War, there is first Anglo-Maratha War, and there is a Rohilla War. Okay, so please do not forget it. How many wars are happening? 3, Rohilla War, Anglo-Maratha War, and second Anglo-Mysore War. So 1774, there is a Rohilla War happening. Okay, and there is also establishment of Supreme Court Calcutta. Now this Supreme Court is not the Supreme Court that we have today. This Supreme Court is only for solving the European matters and European affairs of the European people, not for Indian people. Okay, basically the matters related to the company. Okay, and who basically, where this Supreme Court got sanctioned from? From this Regulating Act of 1773. So what were the provisions of this Regulating Act of 1773? A, to make Warren Hastings as Governor General of Bengal or Governor General of Fort William. Secondly, Bengal Presidency. So how is Britishers, how are Britishers ruling in India? They have 3 presidencies: Bombay, Madras and Bengal. So now Bengal Presidency has been made more powerful, and the Madras and Bombay presidencies are now under Bengal Presidency. That means the governor, see earlier what was happening, this is Bombay, this is Madras, and this is Bengal. So these are 3 presidencies having 3 independent governors who are reporting independently to the British Parliament. But now what is happening? British Parliament has passed this Regulating Act through which this governor of Bengal has now attained the position of Governor General, and these 2 governors will now be under this Governor General. so that that Governor General have a much wider power. Okay, so that is why I'm saying the Governor General of Bengal has become more powerful. Okay, thirdly, Supreme Court has been established, okay, in Bengal, in Calcutta region, under this regulating act. Fourth, you will find that Governor General has been given an executive council so that he can now take his decisions, and decisions will be taken by majority. And fifth thing is that the company's officials will not take bribe or gifts, so that corruption can be controlled. Okay, so 5 points in regulating act, and who are they passed under? Warren Hastings. This is the broad overview that I have given you about this entire page. Okay, now these wars, can you see here? So we will be studying about them here. So Rohilla war we have already seen, that has started in 1774. In 1775 we will find the starting of the first Anglo-Maratha war. Okay, and Maratha war is already going through a civil war, and that is why you will find that there is a lot of confusion. So Marathas is having a civil war. There are two contending parties who want the throne of Peshwa. Okay, and that is why you will find that Bombay Presidency, because it is nearby Maratha region, they are having one treaty. Bengal, because it's the Governor General, he is having another treaty, and then finally all the treaties will get nullified and there will be another overarching treaty. Okay, so first Anglo-Maratha war happens. There is a treaty of Purandar which is entered into by Warren Hastings. Okay, then you will find that see, basically you don't need to remember this, because otherwise you'll get more confused. You read this when you are reading the basically your history more deeply, because otherwise here you will have to remember the three treaties and then what happened in each of these treaties. Okay, so this I will prefer that you please watch the Tamil Nadu class 12th book course that we have already launched on the YouTube platform. Then after that, see, there is Anglo-Mysore war, there is first Rohilkhand war, and there is first Anglo-Maratha war. Now, so first Anglo-Mysore war is not happening now. First Anglo-Maratha war is happening during Warren Hastings times. But second Anglo-Mysore war is happening now. Okay, and in first Anglo-Mysore war, who was there? Hyder Ali, remember? Hyder Ali was fighting, and there was an alliance formed with the Nizams and with the Marathas that they will not, they will protect each other if there is a third party attacking. But then why does the second Anglo-Mysore war happens? Because because actually English tried to attack the Mysore. Okay, but the Marathas and the Nizams do not help them. So that is when Hyder Ali feels that he is being cheated, and therefore he also starts a war. Okay, so Hyder Ali starts the war, but he dies eventually, and then Tipu Sultan continues the second Anglo-Mysore war. Okay, so that is why you find the name of Tipu Sultan written here. So who is the war started by Hyder Ali, second Anglo-Mysore war, but he died, and therefore his son Tipu Sultan took the war forward. Okay. After this, you will find there is a treaty of Mangalore. Which is signed. So, what is the first treaty that is signed between when the first Anglo-Mysore war is happening? Treaty of Madras. Second Anglo-Mysore war, Treaty of Mangalore, and third Anglo-Mysore war will be Treaty of Srirangapatnam. Okay, three treaties: Madras, Mangalore, and Srirangapatnam. So, Treaty of Madras, where you will find the war was inconclusive. Hyder Ali was quite powerful. Treaty of Madras signed. Treaty of Mangalore, when Tipu Sultan is continuing the war, and you will find that still nobody could win the war. Tipu Sultan is really powerful, and Treaty of Mangalore has been signed between Tipu and the English. Okay. Same time, remember 1784, I told you one more thing was happening, which was basically passing of Pitt's India Act. Okay, and this Pitt's India Act, what it did was, see, there was many loopholes in this 1773 Act which were corrected in the Pitt's India Act. So Pitt's India Act, you will realize they did two things. What was it? They first of all divided the company's affairs into two different parts. One is a political affair and other is the commercial affair. Why? Because company is not just engaged in trade, it's engaged in wars, it engaged in controlling territories. So that means it has a political affair also. It has a political function also. So now after Pitt's India Act, you will find that the company's functions have been divided into two, and two different entities will be controlling two different functions. So there is a political function for which a board of control has been made, and there is a economic function or the commercial function which is being controlled by the court of directors. Okay, so board of control, court of directors, political function, economic function, commercial function here. Okay, so this is the first thing done in the Pitt's India Act. And what is the second thing done in Pitt's India Act? Is that first time it recognized, it called the territories in India as the British possessions in India. That means they're recognizing that British has some territories in India. Okay, so more control over the Indian territories by the Britishers, and also basically calling them as British possessions so that nobody else can control them. Okay, and during this time only, since I told you there is social religious reform movement happening on the other side, so Brahmo Samaj we have discussed, but during this time you will find there is a Asiatic Society of Bengal being established, and who founded it? Sir William Jones. Okay, this you need to know from the prelims point of view. So who founded it? Sir William Jones. Okay, after this you will find that see, this is not important because it's too cruel. Then comes the 1786 to 1790. See, after I told you that Warren Hastings is there from 1772 to 1785. After him, Warren Hastings come Lord Cornwallis. Now, before we move forward, this Cornwallis is the same Cornwallis who was defeated. His army was defeated. He was leading the British army which was defeated in the USA. Okay, in the American War of Independence. But his valor, his courage, his bravery was recognized, and he was made as the Governor General of Bengal. Next, like after lose, so basically he is the one fighting from the Britishers side in the America's War of Independence. America gained independence, 13 colonies became independent, British had to go back, and then Cornwallis was sent to India as the Governor General of Bengal. Okay, so this is the connection between world history and modern Indian history. So now Lord Cornwallis has become the second Governor General of Bengal. Okay, and he is the one who is going to bring many reforms, and there are certain wars also that are happening in his time. So we will just do a little brief so that there is no confusion. So we have already studied about Warren Hastings, and now we will take Lord Cornwallis. So Lord Cornwallis, he introduces three kinds of reforms. First is revenue reforms, then there is administration reforms, specifically police reforms, and also IAS or civil services reforms. Okay, he's also called as the father of civil services. Okay, and then you will find he has judicial reforms. Okay, so what are the three kinds of reforms during Lord Cornwallis? Revenue reforms, administration, police and civil services reforms, and judicial reforms. What are revenue reforms? Lord Cornwallis started a new system of revenue collection which was called as the permanent settlement system. So there are three kinds of revenue system that came. One was permanent settlement system, other was a Mehelwadi system, and third was Ryotwari. Okay, introduced by different Governor General, different people at different times. First one was permanent settlement system, which was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. And what is this land revenue about? This is basically fixation of revenues. See, land revenue is a major component for any, if you have seen in the history also, land revenue is almost forming 25 to 30% of the revenue of the state. So it's an important revenue component. So now Britishers are trying to reform this so that they can have more and more of revenues, more and more of profit, which they can actually take back. So permanent settlement system is a way wherein Britishers will fix in perpetuity the amount that has to be paid by the person who is owning the land as a tax to the government. Okay, suppose you are a zamindar, okay, and you are holding a land. Okay, so now you will be required, suppose you have produced something, so out of that you will be required to give a certain percentage to the Britishers as the taxation, because it's the government's land that you are actually owning, and then certain expenditure, a certain amount that you can keep with yourself. But problem with this was, until this act, Permanent Settlement System Act, there was India did not have a formal land record or land tenure system. Okay, it was the farmers who used to control the land. But now after this system, Britishers introduced the concept of land buying and selling. Since farmers did not have enough money to buy and sell, there came the zamindars. And zamindars were the one who started occupying lands, who started selling it, who started lending it. Okay, and farmers were made beggars in their own land. They did not have a land. They did not got the ownership of the land. They did not have those land rights named on themselves, and finally they had to work for zamindars. Now zamindars, they went into a contract with the company for 30 years, for 40 years, fixing the amount of revenue that they had to give. So you must be thinking, why did Britishers introduce? So if you basically fix an amount that land has to give to Britishers will not have to calculate it again and again, and they will be assured of a fixed sum coming from the system. Okay, but it backfired because the land revenue fix was really high. Okay, and So land revenue fix was really high. Almost 80 to 90% of the revenue that zamindar was earning, he had to give it to the Britishers. Okay, obviously there was no income, so zamindar started to move towards cities. And when he started to move towards cities, he basically dedicated a job to a smaller zamindar. That smaller zamindar, also realizing that there is no money, he also gave a job to some another sub zamindar. And this is why you will find that ultimately it was the farmer who went into complete burden. Okay, because farmer was the one producing, he was the one who had to give money to zamindar, and zamindar was the one who had to give money to Britishers. But farmer was not able to pay so many zamindars in between. Okay, zamindars were not able to pay Britishers, they were defaulting, and that is why permanent settlement system was not a very good system. Okay, this was a revenue system introduced as a reform by Lord Cornwallis. So now what is the reform that he made in the administration? So in police system, he made a reform. So he started this concept of basically thanas headed by darogas and SPs in a particular area. So he demarcated like a 5-kilometer area where there will be a police thana headed by a SP, and there will be daroga officers also working under it. So the system that we see today of police is, we can be saying that it was established by Lord Cornwallis. Then came the civil services reforms, wherein he realized that civil servants are very important to control the administration. Okay, he was the one who said that civil servants should not be corrupt, they should be very honest. This is what we should also become, very honest civil servants. And that is why he realized giving them enough salary was an important point, so that they do not involve themselves in corruption. So he started basically recruiting civil services through meritorious system. Okay, he started recruiting honest officers. He increased the salary so that they do not divulge themselves in corruption. And he also decreased, like stripped them of their powers of police or judicial by introducing a separate police and judicial you can say mechanism. So now civil servants were only responsible for administration, the judicial and police powers were taken away. Okay. And now what about the judicial reforms? So he came up with the court system. Even Warren Hastings also had judicial reforms, where he established courts and like district courts, civil courts, and then going till like a Supreme Court system. But here Lord Cornwallis reformed that system, established 4 provincial courts, and after that basically courts of appeal, different for civil and criminal offences. Okay, there was Sadar Nizami and Sadar Diwani. Okay, there were 2 different adalats formed, and then there was like adalats for personal like on personal laws also, and then there were like criminal offences also. Okay, so judicial reforms are also taken. To get more information about it, you have to see the Tamil Nadu class 12th book course that has been launched on this particular platform, because more than this I cannot explain in this particular lecture, otherwise we'll go beyond the scope of this lecture. Okay, so we have seen that Lord Cornwallis actually introduced lot of reforms, and now this page should go easy. So he becomes the Governor General. He introduces reforms which I have already mentioned. Okay, and what I've not mentioned is the wars that happened during Lord Cornwallis' time. So there is Third Anglo-Mysore War that takes place during Lord Cornwallis' time. Okay, and Third Anglo-Mysore War, you will realize that it is a war between Tipu Sultan and English. Tipu Sultan loses the war, and then there is a Treaty of Srirangapatnam signed. Okay, Srirangapatnam is the capital of Mysore. So Treaty of Srirangapatnam is signed between Tipu Sultan and basically English. And after this, you will find that basically basically you will find that after this not much is left with the Mysore. Okay, basically you can say that Tipu Sultan is there, but everything is gone. His sons are also taken, his territory is taken, and therefore he is defeated in this war. Okay, at the same time you will find is the rise of Sikh Empire under Ranjit Singh. Okay, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, he was in news also. Okay, he is said to be the one who was established at Amritsar ka Golden Dome also. So Ranjit Singh, okay, he succeeds his father, and he belongs to the Shukracharya missile. So actually, just like there was a Federacy system in Peshwa, there were different missiles in the Sikh region, wherein like you can say smaller groups. Okay, and these missiles, okay, will be leaded like will have a one leader. So this Shukracharya missile is basically headed by Ranjit Singh, and who finally basically wants to consolidate the entire Sikh empire and make it a strong one. Okay, so after Cornwallis, the next Governor General is Sir John Shore, but his tenure is not that important. Nothing much happened also during his time. So 1793 to 1798. Okay, so Cornwallis is there till 90. Okay, then 93 to 98 is Sir John Shore. Okay, now this 1793 you must see here, there is permanent settlement system at Bengal. Okay, and 1793 is also the time when there is a regulating act passed. So there is a regulating act in 1773, there is Spits India Act of 1784, and then there is again regulating act of 1793. And in 1793 act, in English East India Company's tenure, till what time it can extend in India, has been increased by 20 years. Okay, and that is why you will find the next Charter Act coming in 1813, because till 20 years English East India Company has been given protection. Okay, then after this you will find basically in 1794 Madhav Rao, who is basically the Maratha ruler, he dies, and Madhav Rao Scindia, he dies at Pune, and he is the same Madhav Rao Scindia. Have you visited Gwalior? So Gwalior is the god of this Madhav Rao Scindia. Okay, Scindia family belongs to the Gwalior. Okay, and Madhav Rao Scindia. Have you heard the name of Vasundhara Raje and Jyotiraditya Scindia? Okay, your homework is to tell me how are these three related to Madhav Rao Scindia. Okay, see, I cannot explain you everything, but I can only give you hints of few things that are not related to this presently what we are studying, but they are interesting to know. Okay. Then after that you will find in 1795 you have Battle of Kharda, which is fought between Nizam and Marathas. Okay, and then in 1796 to 1818 we have Peshwa Bajirao II coming to the picture. Okay, then in 1798 you have basically Ahmad Shah Abdali's grandson, okay, Zaman Shah, who is basically like coming in the picture, and you will also find that in Awadh also there is a succession happening. So this is the time you will find lot of successions happening, like sons taking the thrones from their fathers or grandfathers. Okay, in 1798 you will find that Wazir Ali, see, Wazir Ali is very very famous, you know. Tell me in the comment box, is he related to Kathak in any way? Okay, so you need to tell me, is he related to Kathak or not, because that forms the part of your art and culture. Okay, so Wazir Ali is basically has taken over the throne of Awadh after the Asafuddaullah's death. Okay, and Wazir Ali, you will find that he was deposed, and he is then succeeded by Sadat Ali Khan of Awadh. Okay, and during this time, since till 98 is Sir John Shore's rule. So after Sir John Shore, who becomes the Governor General of Bengal? Next Governor General, it will be Lord Wellesley. So how do you remember? You remember Warren Hastings. So you will write Governor General here. You will write Warren Hastings, Lord Cornwallis, Sir John Shore, and then you have Sir Wellesley or Lord Wellesley. Okay, and he is coming from 1798 to 1805. Okay, then after, so this is the like this is happening under English East India Company. What is happening in Marathas, you will separately write here, like starting from Shivaji, write all the rulers going till Peshwa Bajirao II. Okay, similarly here you will write basically what is happening in Mysore. So I told you, so there were 3 Anglo-Mysore wars already fought. First was fought much earlier, second was fought during Warren Hastings' time, third was fought during Lord Cornwallis' time, and now fourth will be fought during Lord Wellesley's time. So during Lord Wellesley you will have 4th Anglo-Mysore war happening. Okay, and in this war finally Mysores are defeated properly. Okay, Tipu Sultan has lost the battle, Srirangapatnam has fallen to the Britishers, and Britishers have now basically put Srirangapatnam under so have you heard of policy of subsidiary alliance? So basically it's introduced by Lord Wellesley. So you will find that Srirangapatnam or Mysore has been put under policy of subsidiary alliance. So and the Mysore region has been given back to Wodeyar dynasty. Okay, what is the dynasty's name? It is the, I am writing it here, Wodeyar dynasty, and their 5-year-old Krishna, who is the Raja there, he is made the, basically he is the prince there, he is made as the king. He is a 5-year-old and obviously he cannot rule. So Britishers are going to place their men, okay, in the court so that they can help the king to rule. Indirectly they need to rule. Okay, so Wodeyar dynasty has been established because Srirangapatnam has been captured by the Britishers. Mysore has lost to Britishers under 4th Anglo-Mysore war. Tipu Sultan has died. English have restored their Hindu dynasty called as Wodeyar dynasty back into Mysore, and this is the end of Mysore. Okay, after this, since we have Ranjit Singh who is consolidating the Sikh empire, so you will find that Ranjit Singh has been made as the ruler of Lahore in 1799. Okay, and you will find that during this time only, this one, okay, this, this particular line, I swear I would have never included it in this chart if it was not important. This was once asked in UPSC prelims, and nobody knew what was the answer because nobody actually studied it. Okay, so sometimes most insignificant events also become more significant, and that is the purpose of this wall chart, to give you everything together so that even like a line is asked in the UPSC prelims, so you remember it. So 1799, William Carey, he opens his Baptist mission at Sirampur. Okay, Sirampur, see, if any time you get a question on Sirampur, remember that Sirampur is majorly a territory where religious activities will be taken, and especially the Christian missionaries activities. Okay, that is why you will find the Baptist mission established by William Carey also in 1799 at Sirampur. Okay, and finally in 1800 there is death of Nana Fadnavis, and 1800 is the time when who is the Governor General of Bengal by the Britishers? It is Lord Wellesley, and he is the one who will establish College at Fort Williams. Okay, this was asked last year in UPSC prelims. College of Fort Williams will be established by Lord Wellesley for education of civil servants, not for you and me, for civil servants. So it's a college for civil servants. Okay, just like you have Labasna, something like that. Okay. After this, you have in 1801, you will find that English have annexed Carnatic and also a little part of Awadh also. And say you will find, see, all these annexations are happening under this policy of subsidiary alliance. Okay. Now, what is this policy? We will talk about it in the next class. Okay. This is all for today. Thank you.